So Bobby Lee has officially filed a lawsuit against the streaming company Wondery. And if you guys remember, a while back, Bobby Lee mentioned that he had signed Tiger Belly over to a bigger company while he was on the Impulsive podcast. Now, it was an interesting move back then, and it's more interesting now. So let's get into it.
Bobby,
Yeah.
did you break up with this girl live on the podcast? Because that's good material.
No, but we did address it on the podcast, and we talk about it. And listen, we're best friends. We did this podcast 7-8 years ago. It's a success. We just signed to do it on a bigger company, and we moved on. And it's a good business, but you can still mindfully break up with somebody that you love with and still work with them and still have love.
Of course.
And all that resentment and anger, you deal with that as, but I love her.
If I remember correctly, it was around the same time that the deal was being finalized that Kalila was officially moving out of Bobby Lee's house into another home and then started building her own podcast studio, from what it looks like. Around the same time, Bobby Lee was essentially receiving a lot of heat, a lot of negative attention because of an old story that he used to tell on podcasts, started going viral on TikTok first, and then eventually everywhere else. It got so bad to the point that he actually had to address it on a podcast episode of Tiger Belly. And while that was going on, Wondery was essentially deleting all traces of Tiger Belly and Bobby Lee from their platform and website. Back then, it was only speculation, but now it has been reported that Bobby Lee and Kalila are actually suing that company for breach of contract. According to The Hollywood Reporter, they're suing them after the audio company allegedly canceled a multi-year ad sales and distribution deal for his podcast, Tiger Belly, that he co-hosts with Kalila Kuhn. The complaint filed in Los Angeles on Thursday on behalf of Lee's Tiger Belly company alleges that Wondery was under pressure to cut expenses and roll back its financial commitments in anticipation of a podcast market slowdown in 2023, leading the company to terminate its 39th month deal with Tiger Belly podcast in early April. The deal, which Tiger Belly and Wondery reached in 2022, was in exchange for a multi-million-dollar financial guarantee that reflected the widespread success and popularity of the podcast, the complaint said. And also, according to the article, in the termination sent to Tiger Belly, Wondery also allegedly cited a morals clause and pointed to a 2013 story that Lee told and later said that it was made up for shock value.
So I want to address this Tijuana story. There's this Tijuana story that I told on Opie and Anthony many years ago on Opie and Anthony, and there's been an uptick, an uproar about this story, and I've always wanted to talk about it. I think it's easily explainable, but at the end of the day, the way I get out of it is I didn't do anything.
It's just not real.
It's not real. So I just always go back to it didn't happen. It's not real. And I just know that this is not going to move the needle with people that think that I am a certain way. I'm not doing it for that,
Now, here's the thing. Essentially, they're mentioning that the company Wondery allegedly was having financial doubts or wasn't sure about the podcast market in 2023 and wanted to be safe. But that doesn't really make a lot of sense. You see, Wondery was acquired by Amazon in 2020, and before that, it had a pretty good track record. It was killing it, actually. And knowing that they're backed by Amazon Music, I would assume that they have some money. Now, regarding the TJ story, that's a little bit different. And I'm still not for canceling people, comedians, whoever, for stuff they have said in the past. And especially when it comes to Bobby's situation where he has said that it was a complete joke. But I'm not here to defend Bobby Lee and instead wanted to look at this straight from a business perspective. Because if you're Wondery, you should have known who you're signing on to your platform, especially if you have people that you have to answer to like Amazon. For example, the TJ story was not a secret. It was something that was told, I think, 10 plus years ago, and then also retold again on Theo Von's podcast. However, I think we can all agree that it's not crazy news to have somebody being canceled from a platform that is owned by a huge company like Amazon. It's kind of what happened to Shane Gillis in a way when he was fired from SNL. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with it, but it's why I don't watch SNL and I don't use Wondery. But also, if you work for Bobby or are in Bobby Lee's team, you should have known that Wondery was owned by Amazon, and just like Twitch, they would most likely heavily moderate their platform in a certain direction. It's just public knowledge at this point. So at the very least, it should have been a conversation that maybe don't cancel Bobby Lee for stuff he will say or has said in the past, because he is a comedian and mostly says things for satire. Could you imagine if Spotify canceled Joe Rogan's contract after some of the cancellation attempts that he went through? That would have been insane. By the way, if you like what you're seeing so far, please hit that like button. It helps push the video to more people, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. Again, according to the article, Tiger Belly's complaints alleges that the company never agreed to a morals clause in its contract with Wondery, and noted that Wondery would have known about the TJ story prior to striking a deal for the podcast. A rep for Wondery did not immediately have a comment when reached by THR. Tiger Belly is seeking a jury trial and damages in the millions of dollars, according to the complaint. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, Bobby Lee has a team around him, whether it is lawyers, managers, or whatever, people that influence his decision making. I get that. But since when is Bobby Lee all about the money? Of course, if someone isn't holding up their end of the deal, hold them accountable by all means. But this case is likely going to take years if it goes to trial. And I'm no lawyer, but I don't think it's a slam dunk case. It just seems odd. And if Bobby Lee was really about the money, he could have gone after it in so many ways that didn't involve a weird Wondery deal for audio only and then suing them. For example, he has Bad Friends, which is completely killing it right now. They've been blowing up for the past 6 months or so. He has active acting roles, which I would assume pay very well at his level. And then he also has Tiger Belly. So why would you want more money just for the audio version of the podcast, which wasn't monetized like that before? It's not like you have new expenses or are reinvesting a lot of money back into your business, or at least it doesn't look like it, unless it's Kalila's new podcast studio, which I don't, it shouldn't be that much. It just doesn't make sense to me. Obviously, this could all be just bad timing, but you can't ignore the fact that as soon as it hit the fan for Kalila and Bobby Lee's relationship, they split and they try to get the podcast into a deal as soon as possible. Now, what a deal like that does, in my opinion, is that it gives you stability for the next couple of years, whatever the length of the contract is, because you're going to get paid a fixed amount, regardless of the performance of your podcast on YouTube or whatever. So from Bobby's perspective, either you think something's going to go down in the next few years and you want to get paid, or you're doing so damn well that somebody offered you so much money that you can't say no, which I don't think was the case, because then why isn't Bad Friends in the same deal? Why isn't Trash Tuesday in the same deal? You get the point. It's pretty interesting now, because at this point, Tiger Belly has gone through a yearly cycle of drama, even involving lawsuits. The last one was obviously with Brendan Schaub, where lawsuits were also threatened to be filed. It's pretty wild, but at the end of the day, it's entertaining, because exactly 1 year after the whole Brendan Schaub thing, Bobby Lee brings him up again on the podcast and they make fun of him.
I'm going to throw out a name.
Okay.
A little controversial. He's been on our podcast. Schaub.
No, zero.
No, doesn't have
zero.
0-2.
Yeah, because he's
You'd see him coming.
yeah, I think I'd
Yeah.
I think he would leave a lot of tracks.
And he also doesn't know how Reddit works. I'm being serious. You have to know how to do computer stuff.
Keep that in. You're right. He doesn't know how Reddit
Is that
works.
crazy what I just said?
No. You're right. He doesn't know how Reddit works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this our last episode?
Come, we're bringing it back. Okay.
And it's funny because both Trash Tuesday and the Fighter and the Kid podcast have been struggling for the past couple of months. So round 2 of the drama would definitely help. I'm kidding, but we'll see what happens with the lawsuit. I'll definitely keep you guys updated. It'll likely take a while, but the results will be interesting. But let me know what you think about this whole thing in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe to support the channel. Dislike if you didn't like this video. But that is all we have for today. See ya.